Messi. Messi. Oh, my goodness. Balotelli. Aguero. That is extraordinary. What a headshot. What a hit. Back of the net.
It's a lot of similarities. I've said before, it's a lot of similarities. Both the characteristics of Irish people and Icelandic people. So it's very similar characteristics. The team is similar to the Icelandic team we started with in the beginning. Young, exciting, really good team spirit, etc. So it's a lot of similarities. So I hope we can build on the same things, similar things that we did in Iceland. A little bit different in Jamaica. They were more high-profile players that we used, but yeah, there's some things that key elements that we need to work on to get results in at this level.
Hello, and welcome back to the Not a Pundit podcast. Have you ever heard such a beautiful voice after the silence we've heard from the FAI to hear those stunning tones from our new Icelandic friend? Here to talk about it all, it's myself, Conor Glennon, Killian Ginnity, and Nathan Byrne. Boys, how are we?
I am so happy.
I will say it came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, no, like this completely took me by surprise. I think we were kind of expecting a lot more leaks about this before an appointment would be made. I think we all kind of expected to kind of go, oh, somebody's on a plane or anything like that. No, the FAI actually kind of, as far as I'm concerned, pulled it out of the bag of this one. Do I believe that he was their first candidate? No. Do I believe that they were always in control of the process, as Mark Hannum says? Absolutely not. But I think we have a great appointment, Nate.
Yeah, I wouldn't be joining you on the pull it out the bag train yet, but
I'm not on that train either yet.
I think it's exciting. It's definitely a relief to put an end to the stupid length that process took. I think
231 days.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that. I'm just excited to get behind a manager now and just like let's see where it goes. You know, huge game starting with England. But yeah, I'm excited to see what ideas his talking about pragmatic football and stuff like that has stood out to me. It's what I've previously said in this podcast that I'm looking for. So yeah, I'm excited and hopeful.
I have to say now, without Killian's 5 of 5 yesterday, I think I would have been fairly lost on the topic of our new man Heimer. But I will say, he speaks well. He seems like a nice bloke. He's obviously he's moving to Ireland. I know that was a key part of the job. I didn't think we'd be able to pull that off. And Kill, you were saying before we hopped on, he's keen to kind of really embed himself in Irish football in terms of not a grassroots level, but he kind of has done that everywhere he's gone, but in the kind of League of Ireland level.
Yeah, he wants to really get a real knowledge of the team, and now part of that is by keeping a lot of the staff that's there. Like he's spoken to the likes of Seamus Coleman and kind of got his opinion on the staff, and he wants to bring in the likes of John O'Shea. Whether John O'Shea knows that yet, he now knows it because it was discussed by them all at the press conference, whether there was an agreement or not. But yeah, he wants to have a full development of players. Now, obviously, with him coaching in the Icelandic League and then being part of the coaching setup as kind of an assistant manager, then like a co-manager, and then being a solo manager of the national team, he's kind of got all levels of their setup. And I think he wants to see a similar thing happen here as to happen there, which is try and keep some really good players in the League of Ireland, develop them here, and then put them out to the likes of Europe rather than England. So get them out to Italy, get them out to France, get them out to Spain, which is what has been happening. And to great effect, look at Jake O'Brien. I think he kind of practically came out of nowhere. Look at Festi Obelesi at Udinese. Like, these players are getting much better first team experience at younger ages than they would have over in England.
Less pressure too,
Absolutely, yeah. And for that, the league is actually getting better sell-on clauses, which works financially for them, but it also allows younger players the opportunity to stay for longer because they're not in a rush to try and get to England to try and get the best development, because they're now looking at the League of Ireland as being a true training ground, which even if you go back a decade, I think at that time, kind of post Robbie Keane retiring, just post, most of the Irish internationals in the Premier League and Championship had actually played in the League of Ireland. So the likes of Daryl Murphy, Wes Houlihan, Shane Long, Kevin Doyle, all these players that were playing for Ireland at that stage had actually come up through there.
Which is
And
amazing, and so far away from where we are now. Like if it is a case where players have played in the League of Ireland, it's for a very limited stint, if even. And obviously the Brexit rules have changed things slightly in terms of player transfers. But if we can get back to that era of at least players who've been in the league, it can only help the league, but also help the national team.
well, it's actually also leads to players having longer top flight careers and better top flight careers if they've started off in the League of Ireland based on those players versus those that came through a lot of the English ranks. So look at like a Darren Gibson who kind of burned brightly and then fizzled quickly versus the likes of Daryl Murphy who from both sides of the northeast, red and black and white. We know of like his goal scoring exploits in the championship, but he had a very long English career. And if Heimer Helgrimsson can help bring that kind of development and has that interest to be that little bit more grassroots, but also having the coaching capability and experience to be able to manage and get a bit of respect from the top level footballers as well. Like, you don't put an end to Roy Hodgson's England career with nothing. So he knows what he's doing. So the likes of an Evan Ferguson can learn from him whilst he's also trying to bring through players that are technically in at a
And
worse level.
I think even Evan Ferguson will, for those reasons, be excited. And I think as well, if you're a mid-level player, you're probably even more excited because he hasn't had the highest standard of teams. Now, Iceland, I'd argue, are a better team than us. Jamaica,
Mhm.
arguable at the same time. But Nate, what are you thinking about the coaching ticket and you as our resident mole in the football world? I don't want to make you out to be the accountant of not a pundit, but what are we looking at contracts for good old Heimer? And then what do you think of the coaching ticket?
Yeah, it's rumored to be around 600. Well, the Irish Independent actually came out and said that it was around 650,000 euro for 17 months, so just up until after the World Cup campaign, which I think is a smart move by the FAI. They're not committing long term, but they're showing that they're willing to back them for the campaign. In terms of the coaching, I'm sort of at the point where I feel like I want to see more movement now in the FAI. I want to see more people leaving and new people coming in. I think him coming in has, in my head, sort of started this movement where I'm like, okay, let's see more additions. Let's see us actually be proactive and go out and back this guy in what we can around international football. But yeah, I think the FAI need to go out and back him. In terms of what Killian was mentioning, in terms of the League of Ireland and stuff. My only issue with that is I feel a lot of it is things he can't control. So he can't control investment in the League of Ireland. He can't control the level of the League of Ireland. And I think that could be where his sort of idea of players coming through that and going out to other countries and stuff like that might fall a bit. But listen, if he gets it done, then we're all laughing, aren't we?
But the only thing about that, though, is him as an international manager saying that he is willing to call up players that are in that kind of a pathway is a really good indication that it's not like it had been previously. Whereas if you do not play for a top two English team, you're not getting called up. By having this kind of wide open, no blinkers on view, it will, him saying that alone will encourage more players to do that and kind of do what's right by their own career with an eye on Ireland rather than feeling that they have to go through the beaten path. And actually just seeing coming through here now, he has already gone and is currently watching Shelburne playing St. Joseph's of Gibraltar in the Europa League, or the Conference League.
See, that's the kind of thing that, like, you can call this a PR exercise if you want, and yes, I am a cynic when it comes to these things, but he's doing the right things. He's saying the right things, and it's exciting. Like as much as
Meeting
it.
fans, getting photos, chatting to families.
And was it? I can't remember who in the group was saying it yesterday, but what was it about when he was announcing his Iceland teams? He used to go to pubs or something.
So when he, this was in our 5 and 5. So if you want a kind of a very quick deep dive on him, go back and listen to that. So when he took over the Icelandic coaching ticket himself, as a way of kind of ingratiating himself with the fans, getting to know them, and allowing them to put their trust in him, he organized meetups for the first game with fans in a local pub to chat through his team selection, kind of go, here, this is the way I'm going to play. What do you think? What do you think I should be looking at for the next team? Is there players I'm missing out on? We're facing X, Y, and Z. Here's where I think their strengths and weaknesses are. What do you think? And then this kind of became a tradition that he would go and meet these fans. He's from an island of 330,000 people. Like, that is a catchment area for a GAA club in Dublin. Like, so he is very, very good at the parochial end of things, which I think Irish fans, it's just so ingrained in our culture to have that kind of a mindset that it's a glove fit here. Like,
FAI missed out, didn't they? They should have got him. They should have supplemented some of his salary with some PR nights and some pubs.
Do we think that he's looking at this job as, obviously he's been at Iceland, he's been at Jamaica. God, it must have been hard taking that job with that awful weather. But do we think he's looking at it as a stepping stone, or do you think he actually is looking at this as a project?
I think this is right for his level. Like, I think he kind of took a step backwards with Jamaica, more so because of, like, we think we're bad. I think Jamaica is in a worse predicament federation-wise. They're struggling to pay players. The players are actively complaining about the lack of professional standards in terms of, like, Leon Bailey came out and said that they were getting training tops that were the women's team because their women's international team is actually very good and kind of very competitive at the Olympic level.
Kind of what happened to the Irish women's team of yesteryear, where they got hand-me-downs from the men. You know?
So, like, to go from that to, as he has said, a much more professional outfit. It was an attraction to him, and I think his name isn't big enough to consider this a stepping stone. I think he considers this a proving ground rather than a stepping stone. I don't think he's necessarily looking for the next appointment, but he's going to go and try and make his name and like put his neck out here. I think he is not to be punny about it, but I think he is chomping at the bit here, considering he's a dentist.
I was waiting to see who'd be the first one to get it on his other profession, which I think the press have been enjoying. Nate, what are you saying? Do you think he's stepping stone, or as Killian said, do you think it's a case where his name's not even big enough to be stepping stone material?
Listen, lads, where I'm at, I think we just have to be honest and consider Ireland is a stepping stone. Like, just where we are, like, internationally, where we're ranked, but what our ambitions have been, but what we've actually achieved. I think it's hard to look past us as a stepping stone. Now, I hope he comes in and does the best he can, but if he comes in, proves himself, and then my idea of what a stepping stone would be clubs coming in to try and poach him. It's hard to look away, especially when we can only offer the salary that we offer. It's hard to not see it as a stepping stone. That's where I'm at. What about you, Connor?
I think I think the approach that he's bringing, at least publicly in the statements he's making, I think he doesn't know how long he's going to be here, but for as long as he is here, he wants to be as involved as possible. Now, that could be from a learning perspective, as, like you said, Keelan, he's almost like a politician in his parochial kind of ways, and I think he's got an opportunity to do that here, and I would wonder, he's only 57, so I think it could work either way. I think he's going to try his best. I think he wants to be as involved as he can. I think having coached men's and women's in Iceland, I think he may try also be an advisor for the women's team as well, which would be great. And all in all, I think short story long, long story short, I think, like I said, I think he doesn't know how long he's going to be here, but he's going to try the hardest that he can. And look, you'd be hard pressed to find a manager who, if they get a bigger offer in 17 months or 36 months, that they don't take a look at it. But I suppose if we look to that England game, obviously we will come on to what could be an apocalyptic weekend, as our good friend Robbie said. But do you think going into that game we should have any expectations of a style of football? Like, looking at from his playing career, he was a defender, but from the comments he's making, he seems pretty attacking focused, and he's not like. Well, there was a quote going around that he wants lots of shots. It's not a case of he wants us being snipers. He wants machine gunners.
I think this is where he is going to be our pound shop Jurgen Klopp, with his rock and roll instead of heavy metal. Like one of his quotes was, "I want many attempts on goal, not trying to find the perfect one." And I think that suits us. It's a little bit scrappy. Instead of going for the pretty football, he just wants a result. I think rather than it being necessarily attacking, I think this is actually very, very pragmatic and just kind of playing the numbers game on this. The more shots we have, the more chances we have of getting a goal. And if he does set up the way that he has with Jamaica with that 4-4-2 with the two kind of deep sixes and two wide players, I think that could work really well. And the fact that he played Leon Bailey through the centre was interesting at Jamaica and could work, as I said in the previous episode, with a Smodix and a Ferguson, kind of a big and a little. That could be very, very interesting for us. I think it's going to make the best use of the players that we have. Now, he has also played at 5 at the back, which I'll be very, very curious to see if he does that against England, because I think that might be a sign of
what's to come.
Yeah, and that's my kind of one concern with the likes of having the same kind of backroom structure as was already there. Does he kind of revert to form instead of kind of implementing his own ideas?
I don't know about you, but I think he needs to throw out the playbook of what Ireland are, and I think he just needs to experiment. Now, when you're on a 17-month contract, that's not the exact long amount of time that you want to experiment. But even player-wise, I think Ireland for the last decade or even 2 decades have become very reliant on a select group of players, and I think he needs to just tear that up and go, right, who do we have available? And I don't even mean like in some sort of American movie tryout situation, but I think he really does need to try different partnerships, like try everything.
And he seems to be very kind of personality driven as well. He'd rather have the right guy rather than the best player, which I think is something that we've said before about England doing wrong. England try to get the best players, whether they're not to fit together.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Ireland's going to actually really, really benefit. I think Kenny tried to do that, but I think Kenny's personality was slightly spiky in the sense of, like, we've seen falling outs. We've seen players not get called up for long periods of time. Think of Ryan Manning. And I think he's just enough of a normal bloke that it'd be hard pressed to find anybody that doesn't particularly like him. And if he doesn't, well, then are you the right personality to have in the dressing room anyway? So I don't think there's going to be any rule book. I don't think there's going to be any expectations of any particular player always playing. I think it's going to be, do you deserve to play? Do you fit in what we're doing? And whilst I don't expect any surprising call-ups, I do think that we could see a few new passports handed out over the next year, and we should have a nice little fresh spine to work with.
Do you think he wants to go, obviously when you're younger, really, because when you build a project like this, it's easier to build it with players who are newer to the system, or do you think he'll do a mix of young and old?
To be honest, he can sort of do what he wants, just because from what I'm hearing and what I'm liking, what I'm hearing is he's going to go back to basics. Like, this is what I've been on this podcast protesting about for the last 8 months. I'm like, give me someone that will play like we are ranked whatever we are in the world. You know what I mean? We need to go back to basics, go back to being pragmatic, and that's exactly what he said in his press conference. whether that's with young or old, I don't really think that matters as long as the personnel's there to do what needs to be done. Like just what he said in that press conference, he hit the nail on the head. He said in international football you have to have the basics perfect, be organized, being compact, being a strong unit, and the first thing you need. And to be honest, that's a damning verdict on what Kenny's time was. I think that's something that really sunk from that press conference. So listen, I'm liking what I'm hearing. I just hope he sticks to it. And only time will tell. But in terms of young or old, I don't really think that particularly matters.
Well, I think speaking of young and old, every person young and old in Ireland, after seeing a certain Ollie Watkins fire one in, after 50 games, 114 goals, we have a final. Fortunately, boys, England are in it. They got a tough chance against Spain. First of all, do you think it's coming home?
No.
Nate?
No, I do not.
They
Now, is
failed
that
their way to the top.
Well,
They have
absolutely, but as Tony Cruz said, you can't write England off. They may not play attractive football, but they grind out results, and in tournaments, that's what you have to do. And as much as I hate how they are winning games, they are winning games.
No,
no.
I'm gonna call England out right now, right? I'm not having it that they played good football last night. I'm really not. I think
Yes,
the
Nate.
referee let
Yes.
I think the referee let them into that game. I really do. I think it was horrible officiating. He didn't give the Netherlands one thing all night. And I genuinely think the confidence building came from where the English players are like, we can do what we want on that pitch. I really do. And I'm not having it that they instantly switch into a good side like that. So to be honest,
I think it's the best they've played. That doesn't mean they played well. You
they
know,
played well in comparison.
yeah, and I think when that Xavi Simons goal went in, I went, oh, okay, we might have something here. And I think Netherlands across that first half played very well. It was very organized. They were kind of pushing it down both channels. It was fast paced, but that second half, it was like England have played all tournament, just kind of static, kind of fumbly. Really, they're all
Mm.
too compact, and they had room to move around, but no one was going forward. There was no urgency, and I don't know if you boys felt the same, but I think if Netherlands had played like they did in the first half, that they that second half really killed them.
Yeah, see, that's the thing with how Netherlands had played all tournament. They normally played how they did in the first half in every previous second half, and they
Yeah.
play, and vice versa. Like they normally kind of took a while to get into the match and then kind of rev things up, high intensity, grind out a result. That's fine. Whereas England in this whole tournament just bored people to death. And like if they did not have the luck of the draw that they did, they wouldn't be here. And the first kind of half decent side that came up against, being Netherlands, is a side that hadn't been playing well, and we were all quite surprised it got to the semi-finals. Whereas Spain has played consistently well.
6 wins.
Like they're the first team to do that, and like they bet a decent, pragmatic, better than England is doing England Germany side. I don't think there's anything that England have to offer to be able to beat them. Like Spain have goals in them from multiple areas of the pitch.
That England team are like cockroaches, man. Though they'd survive anything, like and they now. What worries me is I used to love England going to penalties because you knew they'd bottle it. Now I'm not so sure.
I don't think Spain will let it go that far. Because I think this is where this different style of play is going to be a much bigger factor. Like Spain being reasonably structured with players that have pace and players with skill is gonna be a major help. But like, don't forget, England started like after the Simons goal to kind of put a bit of intensity on, but they didn't look like they were going to score really. Like there was no kind of finished product until a shot later on in the match. A dodgy penalty aside, England didn't do enough to win that match. I don't think.
We have to talk about that penalty, boys.
I don't even think Dodgy covers it. Like, honest to God, is one of the worst penalties I think I've ever seen given. Like, he literally just takes a shot. Like, is that how we're officiating the game now? Like, if you take a shot as a striker and you hit him, that's a penalty. Like, because I can go back and pick out hundreds of penalties from the Premier League last season. Like,
When you have Gary Neville saying that was a disgrace about an English anything, you know it's a howler. Like,
the ref was
Oh,
at it
yeah.
all night. Like, how many dives did you see England make last night that got pulled up? And
do
he
you think
wouldn't
that's
do
off the back of the match
it.
fixing claims,
100%.
and he
Yeah.
just wanted to look perfect?
I don't know if he wanted to look perfect because he had a funny way of showing it, but
He did the exact opposite.
well, I think it would have played a factor into maybe some of the decisions that were given. But like he was blowing everything up for England, and the Netherlands got nothing, and that penalty was the icing on the cake. Like I honestly don't know how that got given, and I think maybe after the tournament, but I'm hoping soon that the UEFA come out UEFA come out and go, listen, lads, that wasn't a penalty because that sets a horrible precedent for the game.
Yeah, and don't forget, like Saka handballed it in the build up to that. Like I think
Twice.
if Ireland had been the Netherlands in that position, we would feel very, very, very aggrieved. And I think even if it wasn't Ireland, if that was Georgia or Austria or any of these kind of smaller teams that had gotten to the semi-finals, I think we would all be a lot more outraged by it. I think the fact that they're a slightly bigger team, we don't feel as sorry for them, but it doesn't change a really, really bad decision. And
At a massive moment.
massive moment.
What
But
happened to VAR? Like, where was it?
Well, as soon as he went to that screen, you just know, like, any time they do their little bloody run over to that screen, you know it's not going the way you want it to go.
Did the handball get checked though? Because that is the most unnatural position I've ever seen. Like, it's
I don't know.
literally, like, I have no idea how that was given.
Like when you consider that, and that was a turning point, I think after that the Dutch kind of seemed to take the foot off the pedal a little bit. I don't know if it was just out of frustration they got a little bit messier. They got a little bit more first half as they had been in previous matches, and without that kind of stroke of good luck, I just don't see England coming into it versus the likes of a Spain, because different to England, Spain have proven this tournament that they'll get goals.
That Spain
open play.
Spain semi-final to me was game of the tournament.
Absolutely.
Outside that Austria game that we've all been harping on about, but you know.
Spain did look leggy against France though. They did towards the end.
Yeah, but now they've had a really long break. Don't forget.
Yeah.
There's a much bigger gap now than they had in the run up to the semi-final. And the difference between England and Spain is Spain have proven they can score goals, they can score from open play, and they can do it in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
England have failed to prove any of that throughout this tournament, and I don't see it happening.
And that was only England's second win in 90 minutes this tournament,
which is insane. They've literally failed upwards. Like I don't think I've ever seen a performance this bad be rewarded so highly. He's the first England men's manager to reach 2 European finals.
And he's possibly going to be. If they do win it, he'll be the first manager to win a major tournament not on English soil. It's mad. Like
it is rewarding somebody for getting C's and D's. It is insane. I just hope Spain will pull through. I think they've relied very much on lots of young players, which is not good.
That goal was unbelievable, boys. That before we talk about the reliance of young players, that Lamine Yamal goal is goal of the tournament by a countryman.
What were you doing at 16?
Not that. That is like
remember.
I was 16. What are you in fourth year? Probably doing some Trocra fast, and he's banging them in at a Euro semi-final.
I was wearing top hats and playing with cameras.
Like honestly, I think Lamal looked very tired towards the end, and even I was like, "All right, there has to be some sort of like work law here where we got to get him off." Like it was getting a bit like, "Come on, Lafuente, take your man off." Like,
yeah, he's 16. Like, mind him.
Like, why is he keeping him on that long?
I tell you what, when I saw Rodri pulling up with what looked like a hammy or a groin or something, I thought, "Oh, this isn't looking great." And then the security guard decided to slide tackle Alvaro Morata at the end of the game. Do we know if he's got actually injured off the back of that? Because he
All
was
right,
hobbling pretty bad.
I think he's all right. The
If
only
he
thing
was
that
actually
scares
injured, I would be calling conspiracy.
the only thing that scares me though is like, lads, I'm a big fan of Kobe Mainu. Yeah, the only
Mm.
game Rodri's lost in his last 86 has been against Kobe Mainu in midfield, and it could be 2 out of 2.
I will say,
I
watching Kobe Mainu, ever since you've pointed out that he doesn't look at his feet, it is absolutely incredible
It's
to watch.
scary. Like the ball's glued to it. Like it's the most bizarre thing ever. But yeah, lads,
unfortunately for Kobe Mainu, I think Gareth Southgate is enough of a horcrux to drag anybody down, no matter how good or how talented or how little they look at their own feet. Like
but
I just don't think I don't think this England side has enough. I think for Kobe Minu, this whole tournament has been amazing. I think it's been perfect for him. It's been a really really great breeding ground for him to be able to develop himself as an England international. And to be honest, I hope even for England, if anybody wants to see England develop, I hope they lose because this tournament should encourage the next manager to come in to play football because that'd be
yeah,
nice to see good players play good football instead of whatever this under eights manager is doing. Like it's
Going
insane.
back to what you were saying, speaking of under eights, you were saying about Spain's reliance on young players. I do think, as much as this tournament has been somewhat disappointing, I do think has been one of the best tournaments for emerging young talent across the board. And that's not only Lamine Yamal. Obviously, he's leading the front on that, but Cole Palmer, you got Kobe Mainu, you got like Foden. I mean, he's at this point he's well established. He's bloody 5 Premier Leagues or something at 24, but he's still
Foden's the new Lingard. Foden has 3 kids. He's not a boy anymore.
yeah.
Like let's discount him from the youth talk anymore. No, but you are right. Like there's lots of players have kind of cemented their status at this tournament, and it's been great to see. And there is that kind of little issue with Pedri getting yet another injury,
Yeah.
which again kind of goes back to Nate's point with Yamal. Like hopefully they actually mind him where they didn't Pedri, and like nobody should be playing 90 games at that age. I think that's how you end up with the likes of Rooney and Michael Owen finished at 30. But I think if he's lifting that trophy at the day after he turns 17, I don't think he or anybody else will be complaining.
I'm I'm personally not ready to get on the Amal hype yet. Now
Oh,
I made a tweet that contradicted it, but I think it can go hand in hand together. I said during that match, I said Yamal's the type of player the football needs right now in terms
Mhm.
of young, exciting attacker coming up after your Ronaldo, your Messi's, and to be honest, Mbappe's been a bit lackluster.
Yeah.
Um, but lads, we had a Gavi before, we had a Pedri before. I think he needs to get through the next 2 or 3 years where people aren't trying to burn this guy out because
Yeah.
this is the danger with Spanish football, and it hasn't happened in other football from what I can see. Like I feel like although the Premier League players play a lot of football as well, it seems to be more managed. I don't know if it's more managed or there's less expectation, but like these lads are getting run into the ground in Spain. Like Gavi and Pedri, like these were the boys the last 2 tournaments. You know what I
But
mean?
I don't think it's a Spain thing because I think Madrid have protected their young players well. I think it's a Barcelona thing. I think this is Barcelona searching for the next Messi. I think they are so desperate to find the next cash cow that they can rely on that they're just running these poor young lads into the ground, and they're going to, in the long run, ruin it for themselves.
I
As
think
I say,
I think you're right, man. Because if you look at Madrid, they've got Arda Güler, and like, is he in the same position? Absolutely not. Now, look, that it could just be physiology between the two players, but
but
I
no,
don't think it
it's
is.
no, like when you look at the amount of young talent Madrid has kind of brought through in the last couple of years, like look what they did with Odegaard when everybody's expecting 15-year-old or Odegaard to go straight into the first team. What
Yeah,
did they do? Put him to Castilla, put him out on loan, made him earn his stripes.
and look at him now.
Yeah, look what they did with Endrick. They kept him in the Brazilian league. Obviously, they have to, but like, what they're going to do with him, they'll introduce him. Look how long it took them to introduce properly Vinicius Junior. Like, he was on the fringes for a good while, and then brought him in. The difference between Barcelona and Real Madrid is Real Madrid have a plan. Barcelona are so poor; they are just trying to get the next player so that they can advertise, so that they can just make through the next financial year. Like, it's a worry not just for the fans, but I think for the Spanish Federation, because they will end up being victims of this in a couple of years' time. International football is played on the long finger, and when the likes of a Pedri or a Yamal or Gavi or whoever it may be, like when they're turning 28, 29, 30, 31, and they're actually not able to keep up anymore. It's like when you see all these young ones going around getting fillers in their face at 19, and then they're 24 and they look about 40. Like, it's the football equivalent of that.
I don't think you're wrong, man. Like, and I do think it's mental to me though that like the Barcelona of yesteryear that seemed to be trucking along as stable as any football club in the world are now in this position where they're full on hand to mouth. You know, like they are living by the day.
While they were like living off the plan, they didn't realize that they had to make the next plan.
Yeah.
And then by the time they realized, oh crap, they had a 35-year-old Xavi on his way to Al Sadd. They had Iniesta on his way over to
Vissel Kobe.
Yeah, and then he went out to Emirates, I think.
Yeah.
Like, they were so late to reacting, not realizing that actually what was in place for the previous 10 years had been in place for the 10 years before that as well. Like, when Pep Guardiola was playing, they already were starting to get 16-year-old Xavi and Iniesta in and around the team, not playing, just in and around the team.
Doing the Madrid thing, yeah.
Look at Ronald, like when Ronaldinho left Barcelona, he was still at pretty much the peak of his powers, as it would turn out to be. But they had Messi for the previous year coming into the team, and then had the two of them playing alongside each other, and then Messi took over when Ronaldinho was gone. That is what football clubs are supposed to do. If you're a business, you don't wait until the manager leaves to have somebody ready to step up. You always have the next one ready to go.
Do you think it's a case that, you know, being the chairman or CEO or whatever the role is across any league at any club is obviously a difficult job, but I think being, say, the president of Barcelona is so highly political. It's arguably a prime minister position. I don't think that's helped the situation, because anyone who's trying to get elected into that role has to promise the sun, moon, and stars. They get in on that. They know if they don't get that, they get turfed out. So I think that's what causes this.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a contributing factor. Like, you do not get a Alex Ferguson reign in the Spanish system.
It's never happened.
I don't know about never.
Well,
not in our memory.
Never in the context of 20 years, you know.
No. Not since football was invented by the Premier League. But like, it's and that's just it's just part and parcel of it. Like, I there's lots of things to laud it, the Spanish system for. This isn't one of them, and I think their national team is also going to suffer at the hands of it. But hopefully not this weekend. Hopefully they'll reap the reward of this, and they can worry about trying to fix it later on.
Do you think going into this final it'll be same teams from both sides that have kind of played the tournament, or do you think there'll be any changes? Because, you know, we talked a lot on this pod about Harry Kane being a traffic cone, and I think, not that he got exposed. It's not like he's fallen off a cliff, but you know, we really saw when Watkins came on the difference, and it's like we said on earlier in the week. You know, it's a case of Kane does not drop in behind, which then gives the midfielders more area to play in and get the balls in. And as soon as they did that, that is where the goal came from. Now, none of us wanted that goal, but that was good build-up play. Cole Palmer did very well. But if you're Gareth Southgate, do you have the stones to drop Harry Kane? What are you thinking, Nate?
he needs to, in my opinion. Like, he won't because favoritism, obviously, but I think he definitely needs to drop him just because the impact he had off the bench was like exactly what England needs. Like, but we'll have the typical old favoritism where I don't think he will end up going with that, but we'll have to see.
I don't know about you, Killian, though. Do you think it's a case of, are we looking at this slightly with rose-tinted glasses and the fact that, is Ollie Watkins a 90-minute man or an impact sub?
Um, I don't think it matters whether he is or not. I don't think Southgate will put him in. I don't think he has the balls to do it fundamentally. Like when it comes to the teams that are going to be put out there, Danny Carvajal is back for Spain, which I think is going to be good for them because they're not going to be reliant on 38-year-old Jesus Navas, which means you're going to have a top level wing back going against these wingers that they're playing that aren't in great form. Palmer, Foden, and Saka. Saka has been good, but not at the peak of his powers as he was at the beginning of the tournament. I think he's kind of, as England have gotten further and played worse, so has he. And then having somebody like Carvajal will kind of disrupt that a little bit more. Apparently Morata will play. I have no faith in Southgate doing anything interesting. So it probably will be practically an unchanged squad.
Think he sticks with three at the back?
Probably. More so because that's what worked the last game. He like, do you ever go on a really bad spell in Football Manager and you just kind of go, you try every formation and suddenly one of them hits and you're like, oh, I'm just going to ride this wave until it doesn't work.
The lucky underpants, yeah.
That has been Southgate this whole tournament. There has been no tactical brilliance. There has been no tactical mediocrity. It has been try it.
I will say we rinsed him for his inability to be proactive in his substitutions, and as bad as England played in that game, I do think he arguably could have brought on Watkins and Palmer earlier, but I do think his substitutions all in are probably the best timed he's done all tournament. I don't know about you boys. Oh
yeah, but any gammon in any Weatherspoons across England would have said you should make them subs.
Yeah.
Like it took them until the semi-final to make some good substitutions. Like that cannot be underestimated. Like we have to look at this as well as this is a final. There's going to be a lot of pressure. I don't think he makes the big calls under pressure, and yeah, I really, really hope they lose. They're going to be so insufferable if they win. It's going to be so grim.
Well, I think speaking of gotta go, I think, boys, we gotta go too. I have to say, for everyone who's followed us on social media, for everyone who's been listening, and for everyone new to the show, welcome and thank you. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage of the Euros throughout. And here's hoping, everyone, that the apocalypse doesn't happen this Sunday. My thanks to Nate and Killian for joining this week. As always, we'll be back with you next week, and we will pray that we have as good a news as we got with the Ireland manager. Let's hope that it's even better with Spain. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Messi. Oh my goodness! Balotelli.